Justice retired Mudgal joins us for a chat. Mr. Mudgal, very strong observations made by the Supreme Court bench against CSK that the team should be disqualified also. These are the observations. Verdict could be a totally different thing, but what is your viewpoint? What is your reaction?
During the course of the argument, if some observations are made, you should wait for the judgment or the order in the matter. Secondly, I've been saying all along, and I'll keep on saying it, as long as the case is pending in the Supreme Court, I will comment nothing about the merits of the report.
Your report did not indict Srinivasan directly, but there was, of course, this conflict of interest. Did you mention something in your report about that? And are you happy that the Supreme Court is finally taking action?
Look, there's no question of being happy. The only question is,
satisfied
that we should be satisfied that the Honorable Supreme Court finds our report to be correct. That's about all. Beyond that, there's no happiness in one way or the other, and I can't comment on anything else.
MS Dhoni's conflict of interest was also discussed. He was being a CSK skipper, India skipper, and also an employee of India Cement. Was that part of your report as well?
No, conflict of interest was not referred to us. We had only mentioned it as many people spoke about it. That's about it. In the first report, which is totally public.
Also, the shareholding pattern of India Cements, how much money was invested by India Cements when they bought by India Cements in CSK, and this entire conflict of interest of N. Srinivasan, did you get into all that while investigating?
I'm sorry, that was not in the terms of reference, and therefore I cannot comment anything about it.
Thank you for speaking to Headlines Today. From New Delhi with camera person Ravi Atit Sharma for Headlines Today.
Under fire in the Supreme Court, the BCCI is now clamoring for an external commission to punish the guilty. BCCI says external commission be set up to hand out punishments to persons found guilty in the Mudgal committee report. I'd like to immediately cut across with the latest developments that have taken place through the course of the day. Scathing observations coming in from the Supreme Court. Whether these observations will be backed with similar scathing orders, well, that will depend on the evidence at hand. But today has been quite a day where the Supreme Court has torn into the BCCI, Mr. N. Srinivasan and Mr. MS Dhoni. Ashish, can you take us through the biggest developments and the observations that have come through the Supreme Court today?
Well, there are many observations, but I'll highlight three. Majorly being the role or the dual role of MS Dhoni, because for the first time we have seen he being named and his role being questioned as an employee of India Cement, as well as heading the Indian team, as well as heading the Chennai Super Kings. So this is the question mark that they had. The court has raised a question on his role. The other thing is on the role of Mayappan. The biggest question that the court has asked is that Mayappan somehow, whether it is directly or indirectly, he is the owner. They say it's very obvious because the owners of this team, Chennai Super Kings, is India Cement, and the board members who took the decision to own this team, Chennai Super Kings, also has his daughters. All his family members, including his daughter, and his daughter is married to Mayappan. So directly or indirectly, Mayappan is the owner. So they said we have to find out who the real owner is, because Srinivasan in the past has very clearly said that he's only a cricket enthusiast and nothing more than that. He's only a cricket enthusiast. But now he said that we have to find out who the real ownership is, who owns this Chennai Super Kings, and who all were the board members who decided who took the decision to own Chennai Super Kings. So these are the demands from the court to the council of Srinivasan as well as BCCI. The other thing, especially Mr. Sundaram, who represents BCCI, the court also questioned his role. He said, are you representing BCCI or are you representing Mayappan? That was the kind of observation that came from the court. The other thing was that the court threw the ball into the court of Sundaram, the BCCI lawyer, and he asked, if I give you 10 days, if the court gives you 10 days, and that these people are culprits, they're involved into betting, they're involved into other discrepancies, they're involved into other malafides. So if 10 days are given to you, what will you do? What action will you take? So Sundaram said that in 10 days time I'll give them a patient hearing, and according to whatever the rules and regulations of the court may be, of the BCCI maybe, I'll take the decision accordingly. But ultimately, before the court had taken a break for lunch, they said that Harish Salve had come in and said that Srinivasan should be banned, CSK should be banned, and ultimately the quantum should be decided according to the rules and regulations of BCCI IPL. And ultimately the court said that is it the correct forum to take this decision or not? So that is going to be debated after the lunch.
All right, interesting developments there. Once again, Ashish, a variety of, especially when it comes down to the BCCI, to Mr. N. Srinivasan, where Mr. MS Dhoni is concerned, scathing observations there. The question I want to ask you, Ashish, till now the Supreme Court had said that they will not reveal the name of players. They did so today, the name of MS Dhoni. Now, we could expect over the course of the hearing of the Mudgal report, the names of other players also to come out, especially the names of player number 2 and player number 3, which find mention in the Mudgal report.
Well, till now, we have seen, if you remember last time also during the hearing, the petitioner had said that the court should reveal the name of number 2 and number 3, but the court decided we will not reveal. But anyways, as of today, the name of MS Dhoni, the Indian captain, has already cropped up. He was also heading Chennai Super Kings. But as of now, we've not heard anything from the court on divulging the name of at least number 2 and number 3.
All right. Stay with us, Ashish. I want to cut across to Rasesh, my colleague who's in front of the BCCI, getting us the very latest. Rasesh, on their part, basically as a face-saving measure, the BCCI has come up with what they call a proposal for an external committee. Now, what is this proposal exactly? Who forms the external committee? Who nominates members to this external committee?
Well, I think if you go by the board constitution, the BCCI will seek time, wait for an emergent meeting to be held and then reconstitute. But one wonders the stance that Supreme Court has taken, if they will be allowed to do that. There was there was a serious line of questioning from the Supreme Court to the BCCI, and one of it was about implementation of the Mudgal committee report and raising question marks over the current dispensations being unbiased, ability to be non-biased towards taking that decision. That's when the BCCI had to come up with this proposal. Most definitely an enforced one of coming up with an external agency. We'll have to see how it plays out once the court resumes post-lunch. I believe the BCCI will also have an opportunity, their legal counsel will have an opportunity to argue further, and I think that's when they may come up with some proposals. It may well be that they may come up with a proposal which then the court deliberates upon. Remember, a few months back when the interim report of the Mudgal committee was submitted, the Supreme Court had then decided by itself, made the decision to appoint Sunil Gavaskar as the interim chairman of the board at that time to look after the IPL activities. So whether there would be deliberations from the BCCI and the court and the committee would be formed, we'll have to wait and see. Also, I think people would be very keenly looking at what sort of proposal the BCCI comes up with, or how it responds to the court's questioning that you carry on with the AGM minus N. Srinivasan. Is the current BCCI heavily governed by Mr. Srinivasan willing to take that decision? Are they willing to come up with a candidate, or are they willing to go ahead with the AGM? They perhaps do not have an option. But I think we'll have to wait and see how their defense is taken forward in the due course.
All right, I want to directly cut across to Rasesh Mandani at this juncture. Rasesh, what we were talking about earlier before we got in the reaction of Mr. Kirti Azad. What happens to the AGM now? The BCCI till now has constantly postponed it. But now, with the observation I want to pull out at this juncture is where the Supreme Court went ahead and said that hold elections, a new board needs to be formed, needs to investigate, and Mr. N. Srinivasan needs to be kept out of it. Now, what happens to that AGM and what happens to re-elections where the BCCI is concerned?
Look, I think Priti, one has to understand where the Supreme Court is coming from. When the court asks, we know that it's not an order, it's an observation, but when the Supreme Court questions the BCCI, you go ahead with the AGM minus N. Srinivasan or the people who are being probed, there's obviously certain background that they are looking at as well. All along, the Supreme Court has been reading the BCCI's game plan, where the board has constantly postponed the AGM. The petitioners have all along been arguing that this AGM has been postponed for one single person, that is Mr. Srinivasan. If he not be allowed to contest, the BCCI obviously now have an opportunity to contest there, to put forth their reply, but they know that the Supreme Court is serious about it. There's been some scathing observations that are coming in. The root cause, one of the diseases of Indian cricket has been the conflict of interest, and that issue has been taken up by Supreme Court almost heads on. There's not been just a question mark asked of the BCCI as well. It's been a question mark asked of Srinivasan. There's been a question mark asked of the India Cements as well. Now, India Cements is a public limited company. The Supreme Court wants to know who are the shareholders who taken the decision to invest in that company, which means that when there is a public limited company whose reputation at stake, there are obviously larger ramifications as well. I think all of these issues will have to be weighed in by Mr. Srinivasan when the BCCI resumes hearing and sits back and replies to the Supreme Court as well. So it's obviously Mr. Srinivasan seems to be cornered in many ways. A lot of difficult questions being posed by the Supreme Court, and in this situation, one finds it very difficult to imagine if the BCCI again seeks a postponement because Mr. Srinivasan is not allowed to contest again. They may well have to go ahead with the AGM minus Srinivasan if this is the strong stance that the Supreme Court continues to take.
All right, appreciate you joining us there, gentlemen Ashish and Rasesh. We'll just keep coming back to you on this developing story. Massive developments emanating from the Supreme Court to take our viewers through that three top scathing observations. Of course, these are observations, these are not orders. But the Supreme Court today observed, number one, they asked what constituted India Cements and how such massive sums of money was spent in putting a team together, which is the Chennai Super Kings. Number two, the second observation which came out, and that's the operative line where the Supreme Court said that Mr. Srinivasan and others need to be kept away from re-elections of the BCCI, and a new board needs to be constituted which looks into the investigations. Number three, till now, we've only heard the name of the BCCI and Mr. N. Srinivasan, but today the name of Mr. M.S. Dhoni, the captain of the Indian cricket team, was raised as well. We'll keep getting our viewers the very latest from the Supreme Court.